Oh, yes. This is the Hardcore Marketing Show. I'm Casey Cheshire, your host for this epic journey. And today's show, sponsored by Cheshire Impact, on a mission to help people maximize their use of Pardot and Salesforce. CheshireImpact.com. Bam. Hey, everyone. Before we get started with the show, I'm excited to announce two things. First is that my book, Marketing Automation Unleashed, is now live on Amazon. So go get it. The second thing is we have a new sponsor, Qualified.com. I'm going to tell you about them in the next couple seconds here, and also how you can get a free copy of my book thanks to them. So who are these people? Well, Qualified is the #1 live chat and chatbot platform for Salesforce and Pardot. Sales reps can have real-time, personalized conversations with who? Your hottest website visitors. So I want you to know, I don't just partner with anyone. I genuinely love these guys. And the platform, we use it at my company. Our sales team loves it. We've closed a lot of deals based on it, had a lot of great conversations with prospects too. So, a lot of marketing these days is what? Hurry up and wait, right? Fill out this form. And then if we pass you over to sales, maybe you'll swap 6 emails with them to find a good time to talk. But what if a prospect is doing research right now and they would chat now? Why not give them the opportunity? So the best part is your company actually decides what leads are worth a live chat. There's a lot of noise out there. You don't want to talk to everyone. So Qualified actually connects to Salesforce and Pardot, and it's able to pull in lead and contact information so you can specifically know if you're talking to a VIP, a VP, a decision maker. It's really kind of like magic. Now, if you don't know who someone is, well, what happens then, Casey? Well, that's when the bots come in handy. Chatbots can then ask questions to further qualify a lead, find out if maybe this is someone you do want to talk to. And they can book meetings while your sales team is out. And they can wake up the next morning with a bunch of meetings on their calendar. Now, here's the promo. If you are a company that wants to give your sales team this ability, right, to be able to talk to decision makers right when they're on your website, do this. Go to qualified.com and start a chat, right? They use their own tool, of course. Start a chat. Tell them that Casey sent you. If you have Salesforce Pardot, when you schedule and then do a demo, they will send you a free copy of my book, Marketing Automation Unleashed. Not bad, right? Well, it's only while supplies last. So hop on this thing today. And that's it for sponsors. Let's get to the show.
Here we are, live from Studio B in the coronavirus bunker at my house. The show must go on, people, and this one is going to be a good one. I'm excited to introduce to you our guest. He is a tattooed, Harley-riding, foul-mouthed sales and marketing leader, but don't let that fool you. He actually wins awards, sales awards, marketing awards, business strategy. He's a consultant. Super high energy host of the B2B Revenue Executive Experience, which is a cool ass podcast. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how he loves to do training and teach people the way and clear the way for him. He is a managing partner at ValueSelling Associates. And again, the host of that podcast, the B2B Revenue Executive Experience. Chad Anderson, welcome to the show, sir.
Hey, man, thanks for having me. It's great to be here. I am unfortunately not in a bunker.
Not in a bunker, no.
Not in a bunker.
I feel like I am. Man. You're surviving this shutdown.
Yeah, so far we still have enough toilet paper, so we're good.
You do, right? You know what's funny? I looked down at the other day and I saw the toilet paper was out. I took a photo and I sent it to my wife and I was like, oh no. And then I look up and there's like 3 of them on the rack. So then I replace it and I take another photo and I was like, oh no, you're all good. Back to your homes, everyone. We're good. We got enough. So this is great. I'm so glad you're here. This is our marketing leadership series, podcasting series, fellow podcaster and marketing thought leader. Love that you're here so I can pick your brain and we can just dispel all these myths. It is St. Patrick's Day today. We did talk about getting Guinnesses afterward. Otherwise, this would descend into
madness.
A Howard Stern podcast, right? So, normally I would pass you an actual hammer, but here, let me pass you an imaginary hammer. This is Thor's hammer. Take this hammer and smash for me some kind of marketing myth, some misconception, bogus strategy that just drives you crazy. Set the record straight.
One of the things that absolutely I think continues to annoy the crap out of me is this belief that technology is the answer. That more MarTech automation, that more MarTech data, that more insights are going to increase connection rates and increase the way human beings interact. It can help focus, yes, but if technology were the answer, there wouldn't be over 7,500 companies in this MarTech 5,000 US,
Yeah.
which they're just, I mean, in the time that we're talking, I'm sure 2 more MarTech companies will be founded.
Boop, boop. There you go. Yep.
Right? Yep, there they are. 2 guys and a dog in a garage in Wyoming. And it's at the end of the day, marketing and sales and revenue generation in a B2B environment, it's about people. It still comes down to people. And what's amazing to me is that the technology has actually created a divide where most human beings don't know how to effectively communicate with another human being. So even if the technology allows me to get somebody on the phone, on a meeting, on a web share, whatever it is, I don't have any tools that allow me to consistently connect to them as another human being to uncover their perspective. The technology is designed in such a way, and our onboarding of individuals and organizations is designed in such a way that I get on and all I want to do is talk about me.
Yeah.
And nobody likes that. It doesn't work
Yeah.
when you're dating. It doesn't work in business. You have to work at understanding the other human being, and technology is not the be all end all. It is a part of the solution. And I would even go so far as to say, not even the largest part of the solution.
Not even the largest part. There's some shots fired here. Bunch of SaaS vendors out there like, Casey, can you get me his address? I want to
Yeah.
swing by and pay him a visit.
Well, and some of them are my customers. So I mean no
Right.
disrespect, but at the end of the day, this is a human to human exchange, right? We're still at a point where you have to be able to connect to another human being. And if you can't, then you're at a disadvantage because nobody's going to sit around and listen to you just, waddle on about the features and functionality and, oh, we do this cool shit. Nobody cares. What they care about is how are you going to help them solve their problems, and our marketing content and our marketing strategy, our content strategy, even into our sales funnel, it has to be frictionless. It has to be frictionless in a way that is focused on at each stage in that process. What does that person care about at that point in time?
Yeah. What do they care about? What do they care about? Not what you care about. But you know what? You mentioned the features and functionality. I feel like that's in some like product marketing textbook somewhere because everyone does that. They always talk, even sales does that. Oh,
Oh yeah.
let me tell you about my features and functionality. And everyone's like, checking out,
Yeah.
don't
Well, I
care.
mean, think about how people are onboarded, right? Think about like
Yeah.
regardless of the company, if the onboarding's 2 weeks or it's 6 weeks or it's 12 weeks, doesn't really matter. But when you're doing that, you're onboarding them to understand the culture, the processes, us, 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 us. You want them to
Yeah.
understand the product and the companies that we've helped and things like that. And that totally makes sense. But if you don't mix that or balance that with some way to have a framework for them to be able to leverage that information in a way that allows that connection, that H to H connection, then all you're doing is setting them up for failure and, more importantly, setting them up to create experiences that rub your prospects and or current customers the wrong way because it's all
Yeah.
about you and not about them.
Well, how do we fix this? You mentioned it's not even the biggest part. The tech is not. What is the biggest part?
Well, this goes to a whole bunch of probably stuff I should be really careful talking about, but it's the societal
No,
norm.
don't be careful. Drink that Guinness. Here's a shot of Jameson. Come on, you got this. No one's listening. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, right. It goes to the societal norms that we have. Like if you think about it, in the last 10 to 12 years, there's a couple things that have happened. Number one, devices have become so prevalent that there was a stat a few years ago that millennials are more likely to wake up in the morning and reach for their phone than their significant other. Right. And so we become so
Psh,
addicted to these screens, right? So we have this 1 foot, 3 foot, 4 foot, 10 foot experience where there's screens all around us. It distracts us. It changes the way that we think about engagement. Short little texts with cute little emojis in our personal lives and stuff like that, or apps that give us exactly what we want, like Amazon, give us what we want, where we want it, how we want it, because companies have invested, millions upon millions of dollars in customer experience to make these
mhm.
things frictionless, so they can essentially keep their hand in your wallet longer and have you be okay with it. And that's a nice progression for business and engagement with brands, and I get all the benefits of that. But the other side of that is, and I mean, with we've got we got 11-year-old twins in the house, and they're like this with the phones, right? It's always in
Yeah.
face. It's hard for them to consistently connect to other human beings, and it's prevalent across all industries, across all practices. People are hiding behind the technology now. Interestingly enough, I think with this COVID stuff and the social distancing,
Yeah.
there's going to be an increase in the number of people who have to turn on their cameras. Like you and I, we've got our cameras on right now so we can see each other, right?
Yeah.
And that's a better connection than just dialing into a
Oh,
web conference and
hell
put
yeah.
somebody on mute. I mean, you can tell when I'm taking a drink, you can tell when I'm using my hands. There's a better connection there. That's going to require a different skill set in communication. Still requires a framework to uncover the other person's perspective, but isn't something that's going to come natural to a lot of people. I did a meeting yesterday with a client, and he hops on. We turn on our cameras, and you could just tell that he had just rolled out of bed. Hair, I mean, I don't have hair. Hair was all askew, like just
Yeah, we don't
everywhere.
have to worry about that, right? We just
Yeah,
roll out. We're like, hey, look,
just
I look
roll out.
great.
It's all good. We don't have to worry about that at all. But it was like there was no attention paid to the impression that the background
Yeah.
or the presentation gave. And it's in a business setting, what do they say? It's it takes a one time to do to make a first one time to make a first impression.
Yeah.
And I love the phrase, you used to dress for the job you wanted, not the job you had.
Yeah.
Right. Well, now most of us are dressing like we don't even want to get out of bed. I mean,
Right.
I'm not even like, I'm just wearing a Harley shirt today because I'm just like, it's fine. I'm not putting on my suit today. But it's like
Oh, I see. I see
understanding.
how this goes. All the other podcasts you put on a suit.
No,
Mine,
hell no. No, when I'm doing podcasts, it's just, you just get me raw and uninterrupted,
That's
for
right.
better or for worse. But at the end of the day, if you think about people taking a moment, taking a breath, this isn't about which technology I'm using or how much data I have. Part of it is self-presentation. Part of it is the
Yeah.
way I speak. Part of it is the way I write, because written communication is so important. And we've seen linguistic changes in the way people communicate because of texting and
Mhm.
instant messaging. People shorten stuff. They use a lot more emojis. Well, that creates a lot more variability in what is an understood between two individuals.
Yeah.
And so without some type of training, without some type of framework for them to work within, the dialogue can go anywhere, and there are huge gaps in any marketing or sales process and huge risks.
It's true that this. I mean, there's flip sides to everything. The social distancing makes me really appreciate the social not distancing, right? And there's a
Right,
few.
right.
There's some people I saw a post where it's like the extroverts are, the introverts are like woohoo, and the extroverts are like oh no,
Yeah.
and for me, I'm like oh, geez, now I appreciate like waving at someone on the sidewalk, like
Yeah.
hello, human,
Yeah.
are you there?
Well, we take all of that. We take
Yeah,
all of that human connection for granted. We
we do.
think that by being close in proximity, we're all hanging out at a bar. Before they started shutting down the bars and stuff, is it a bar? It's a Thursday evening.
Be honest, this was like last night, right?
Wow, no, I was into my own jack here, working on some stuff. But you're sitting there and you see a group of friends around a table, and they all have their phones out. They're not even
Yeah, you
like,
see
they
that.
feel like they have a human connection because they're all sharing space, but it isn't truly that. Have a conversation, connect, understand another person's perspective, debate, evolve your thinking, try to bring them around to another point of view.
Yeah.
They'd rather send a meme on Insta or something. It's
Yeah, they
like,
need
okay,
better friends.
yeah, yeah, ones that actually want to pay attention to you.
So all this comes to a head when we realize we do have to connect with people and turn on our webcams. And you mentioned, it's not about what your app does or your software, your service. It's not about that. It's about what people want and friction. You said frictionlessly giving them what they want at every stage. What's your overall take on that? Where do we go? Technology should come second or third. What's first on your list?
First and foremost is that human to human connection, that ability to understand somebody else's perspective. If you start
Okay.
there, you can then leverage technology to automate and help. You can do
Yeah.
role and industry based types of prospecting or account based marketing, but you need to start with the foundational element of what is going to be valuable to that other person. And sometimes it's just our best guess based on some research, based on some reverse engineering of having worked with other companies and people in those same roles. But that should be the focal point. Whereas what I have a tendency to see is, hey, we got this new tech. This new tech does this. How do we use it? And I feel like that's
Right.
putting the cart before the horse. You may not even need that tech. It just
Right.
depends on what you're trying to accomplish and who you're trying to get in touch with, what industries you're going into, and how you're doing it. And then there's the belief, or I didn't say belief, I would say the disappointment when the tech just doesn't make my job super easy.
Yeah.
Like,
It's not magic.
they call it work for a reason. Like, and if you're in sales or if you're in marketing, if you're an SDR inside of a marketing organization, part of that revenue funnel, or you're a sales exec, this is a grind. This is not, you don't get into this because it's easy money. It's high risk, high reward, but you have to put in the work. And you have a whole bunch of skills you have to master. Communication, amongst one of the top ones, in my opinion. Business acumen, probably a close second. But you need to understand what it means to communicate, how to communicate with another human being. You need to understand how to shut up and listen sometimes, right? And a
Yeah.
lot of people just can't do that. If you watch, I sometimes will watch people talking and see what the length of time is someone can actually listen before they have to interrupt the other person and start talking, right? And so there's this, just, hey, take a deep breath, use the 3-second rule, right? Just count to 3 in your head and just listen to what they're saying. Don't think about the next app you're going to download, or, hey, I got to do this or that. Like, be present, just freaking have a conversation. And if you can do that, then underneath you can build a tech stack that will support your ability to do that. I think that's an optimal approach, both from a marketing standpoint and a sales force automation standpoint. But it's one that organizations have a tendency not to use. What they do is look at, here's what I told Wall Street, or here's what I told my board, or here's what I told my business partner in terms of what we're going to do metrics wise. I need to find technology to make sure that I do that. And that's okay, fine. What it creates is you have a shit ton of technology that I would bet most of your people aren't even using correctly.
Yeah.
And it's not driving those connections. In fact, in some cases, if I get one more crappy automated marketing email, like, I mean, to me, because of what I do, because of working, training sales and marketing teams, that's easy prospecting for me. Somebody shoots me a crappy marketing email, I just forward it to the CEO and say, hey, if you want me to, I can help you fix this. And that's how I kind of get some of my business, because I know the systems are set up to try and make it as easy as possible for an SDR or a marketing team or account executives to try and get in front of people. But at the end of the day, they're not paying attention to what kind of impression, the phrasing, or the sentence structure, or the length of the email. Like, when's the last time you read an email that had like 5 paragraphs in it?
Right.
Right? I 4
It
or 5
wasn't
lines.
spam, right?
That wasn't spam. Yeah.
Yeah.
4 or 5 lines. Like, that's all you get. And it's like, but make them about the other person, about how you can help them, about understanding, like, show them, show them, know what kind of challenges they're having. From there, then use the technology that's going to enable you to do that in a way that, from first contact through them getting to the point where they realize the value that convinced them to buy in the first place, and then even upsell, right? Like account management, make that frictionless, make it about them. It shouldn't be a sales process. It should be a buying process. It shouldn't be a sales journey. It should be a buying journey, right? And we have a tendency to define it from us to them rather than them to us, which is the way we should be doing it.
Yeah, totally. It's like we're not watching PBS, special Pride and Prejudice, 5-hour series here, where they're writing these letters to each other. I thought of you after last afternoon, and I was wondering if you wanted to buy my SaaS software. But 5 pages later, oh, what a romantic letter, all this parchment. It's like, no, we're not doing that. But yet you see these long emails or this, the tech that sends it out. And you got me really thinking, it's not really, the secret sauce. Oh no, you need more leads. You probably shouldn't be looking right at your tech first, or at the next tech you need to get. It might be something as simple as just changing the message, or learning a little bit more about your buyer, and then whatever tool you're using, great. Now just have the right thing go out to them. What's your ideal message? Do you spam people, or cold
No,
call, or
yeah,
cold
it's a great.
email, or what's your thought?
So we teach a process called Vortex prospecting. So when you look at
Whoa! We need to pause. Vortex prospecting.
prospecting, yeah, it's a
Shit.
framework for prospecting. And
Okay.
so Vortex prospecting ties into the other framework we teach, which is the value selling framework. So the entire revenue funnel is focused around something we call a value prompter, which is a way to understand another human being's perspective. So on a Vortex prospecting side, first and foremost comes, who am I going after and in what industry? That is step one. It's role-based, industry-based kind of segmentation of data, segmentation of research, and then through running some not like days and days and days, but some really compressed, targeted research, understand what that role is dealing with.
Yeah.
What are the top challenges? Like, let's say CMO in retail. if I ran, 2020 industry reports, CMO in retail challenges, I'll probably get 3 or 4 reports that'll tell me, hey, these are things that a CMO is probably facing. Great. That allows me then to think about that CMO and what problems are going to get in the way of them
Yeah.
resolving those challenges that they have. From there, I can then take that and at least have done some homework on them, their industry, and my outreach to them is to provide them value. So I'll send maybe an email that has this report I just found. Hey, we're working with other CMOs in retail. Thought you might find this interesting if you haven't had a chance to see it. Know you're busy. Probably would recommend you check out this page and this paragraph. Think it might be really valuable. That's it. Would love to hear your thoughts. Soft ask, right? Then maybe I'm going to hit them on LinkedIn and I'm going to reference that report. I'm going to reference that email and be like, hey, that report I shared with you the other day, here's something else I think you might find valuable. And I'd love to know how your organization is tackling it or what it means to you. And would love to share insights on other organizations that we've worked with and helped in the same way. Then maybe I call them. And then maybe I leave them a voicemail, but I reference that social interaction. And so Vortex allows you to create, it uses a psychology-based approach called priming of memory. And so we're basically, through these touches and the daisy chaining of it, creating the essence of a relationship that maybe hasn't really truly existed yet. So we're increasing familiarity. Another psychological report on it, I think it came out of Stanford, was mere exposure effect, right? And so the more I put my name, my company's name, my email, my phone number in front of you, the more familiar it's going to become. And if I'm doing that while I'm focused on things that should be valuable to you, my connection rates, my conversations are completely different than I'm just like, hey, I got this cool widget. You want to check it out? Totally
Right.
different.
Man, the priming of memory, the mere exposure effect. You got some wizard powers in this vortex.
I don't know
So
about that.
this thing is spinning around, and the poor prospect is in there going like, help me, Chad. That's awesome.
It's designed to help provide that framework for the grind, right? Like and the beauty of it is it gets super powerful if you use the tech stack the right way to analyze what's working versus what's not. Down
Okay,
to
cool.
A/B testing subject lines of emails or social interactions or content that you've shared, right? Now I have data that's going to help me better understand the individual rather than attempt to tell me first and foremost, hey, this content didn't work. Maybe you want to change it. Well, no shit. Well, the question is
Yeah,
why?
right.
Why didn't it work? So now I can use the technology. And people have a tendency, like when we work with organizations to roll out Vortex or value selling, we hear a lot of people that kind of push back on doing call blocks. And they think Vortex is nothing more than picking up the phone. And we do teach best practices in picking up the phone and having conversations and creating emails. And there's a lot of focus on the phone because it still statistically is the best way to get somebody a connection if you
Sure.
look at the data. Now, people don't want to pick it up. Number one, cold calling. I mean, I'm over a million cold dials in my career because I am a 100% commission sales rep. So I prospect every day that I'm not in class, not teaching somebody. I'm doing 50 dials a day. I'm sending
Really?
50 targeted emails a day. Yeah, you got to do the grind because you're not going to notice the pipeline like shrink next week or the week after,
Yeah.
but you'll notice it in 6 weeks when all of a sudden the panic sets in, right? So you got to be consistent. You got to do the grind. And the beauty of it is with the data, the tech stack, if we've started looking at that individual, that role in industry first, and we've reverse engineered to what they think is important based on our research, we then have the technology that allows us to bring that target closer and closer and closer over time. So while it takes a while to get the system ramped up, once you have enough data to tell you, hey, this email worked at this point in time to this individual because of this headline, now you have something that you can tweak, really make about the other individual. But if you don't do the consistency of the multi-channel approach to prospecting, you're going to get lost behind feeling like people feeling like you're spamming them.
Yeah. Is the call like step one in your process, or is it just one of the touches in this vortex?
So if we have this thing in Vortex called the sphere of engagement, and there's 6 kind of channels, right?
Okay.
So there's phone, email, and inside of email I include LinkedIn email, snail mail, that kind of stuff, right? Like any kind of mail.
Oh, so like direct mail's in there too,
Yeah,
and just any
direct
kind of
mail.
message. Okay.
Yeah, so we've got phone, we've got email, and we've got social. So those are one-to-one relationships, and then we have networking, events, and groups, which is things where you volunteer to do that you may not necessarily think are work. Those are one to many. And so what we want to do is create a cadence that leverages all of those channels in a multifaceted approach to prime someone's memory, create content that uses what we call AIM, anxiety, influence, and motivation. So you want to introduce a little bit of anxiety. Hey, were you aware of this challenge? Or were you aware that your competitor was solving this challenge this way? Hey, we've helped other people do this, influence, and then motivate them to have a conversation, right? So if you create your content strategy around AIM, and you create your cadence or your outreach strategy through this multi-channel approach to prime the memory, then what you're doing is starting to create a relationship where you can have a deeper conversation, a more meaningful conversation with the other individual, rather than just, hey, I got this cool widget, which is really all that's going to do is shrink your deal size.
Yeah.
Right. What we
Yeah,
want to do
cool
is
widgets like
understand the problem.
commoditized, right? You know, it's just
Yeah,
like, yeah, everyone's got cool widgets. So how cheap
absolutely.
is yours? You know, as
And that's
opposed
the
to a
last place
solution.
we want to be. We don't ever,
Yeah.
ever want to be negotiating on price, just
Right.
price.
Right. Can we break down AIM a little bit further? Because it sounds like just a little bit of guidance in this, and when we're doing messaging, could just make it that much better of a message. And I feel like I've seen some emails, even from my own team, where we're actually putting the A in there, and it's kind of exciting to think about. But could you break down each one? Like, what's the
Yeah.
best?
So, well, I don't know. It's best. It'll depend on, again, on that role in industry, right? So
True.
what's
Yep.
going to create, what's going to create anxiety is going to change a little bit. But at the heart of it, if you break it down, anxiety is designed to elicit an emotional reaction, right?
Okay.
And now typically it's designed to elicit an emotional reaction by bringing future consequences of inaction today to the present. So they may not be thinking about this problem you can solve. You want to bring that to the forefront and help them understand what the impacts could be if they don't solve it today. So you want to create a little bit of a like a oh crap moment. Not
Yeah.
too far. You can't risk credibility, trust,
Right.
and rapport, right? And so it takes a fairly developed communication style to pull it off. But you want to elicit an emotional reaction that's something that's going to be important to them, provide them some value.
Right.
Then you want to demonstrate influence, meaning you've solved this problem for other people before. This is just pulling out your case studies and saying, hey, we worked with a CMO in retail at this company to solve these problems and drive these results, right? So we know what we're talking about. So it's the credibility, it's the influence
Mm,
that you can actually address these problems. And then the motivation is the ask, is the get them to have a conversation with you by employing some type of time bound element that if they don't solve this problem, then in 3 months it's going to be worse than it is today. And it's a very simple structure, but it is like most things that are simple. It takes a little practice to get
sure.
it done. The beauty of it is if you create your content strategy using AIM, you then could create anxiety through a social channel, demonstrate influence in an email, motivate them to act in a voicemail. So it doesn't all have to
Oh,
be in one. Like emails can be AIM emails, anxiety, influence, motivation, but you can also break it up. And so you
interesting.
get to then play with the focus, if you will, of that
Yeah.
sphere of engagement to get tighter and tighter on your target so you can get more conversions, more conversations.
Wow. So you could just have a message where all it does is just it's designed to create anxiety. You're not
Yeah.
even trying to make people feel better at the moment, just trying to
Yeah, just
get that
created.
emotion.
And now, I little words of warning.
Yeah.
Considering the current panic climate
Yeah.
or heightened emotional sense of the COVID
Good
environment,
point. Yeah.
I'd be very careful because at the core of it, we never ever want to be disrespectful to ourselves, disrespectful to our customers, and disrespectful to our managers in our company. We have an
Right.
obligation, I believe, as an employee or as a consultant or as whatever, to be as respectful as possible and be aware of what's going on in somebody else's life. Now, right now, everybody's going through COVID. But
Right.
like, if let's just say that was over, we're through COVID, everybody's back to normal. You still would be very careful because you don't know if the person that you're going after recently had a loss in the family,
Right.
or you don't want to. Maybe they just lost a job. You just want to be very respectful with the type of anxiety that you focus on. And it was actually, I want to say it was Dr. Cialdini in his book Influence
Yeah.
pointed
Okay.
out that in work, in a work environment, we first identify with our role rather than as an individual. And that's why the role-based, industry-based approach to prospecting is so powerful. Because if you read that book, I may butcher this. If you read that book, they did an experiment where they took people off of the street and they took, I don't know, I'm going to make some numbers up here, 10 of them and made
Yeah.
them guards, and 30 of them and made them prisoners.
Yeah.
And what they found was, as they went through this, the people who were the guards, who had never been prison guards before, because of the role they had, started to develop and display an overabundance of power type of behavior dynamics, because they were identifying with the role. And the prisoners, who had never been subservient or, in captivity or anything like that before, started to exhibit the same behavioral dynamics you would see in a normal prison. They actually had to stop it. They had to stop the experiment because it got a little too real at times. And so this concept of self-identifying with my role inside of a business allows us as marketers and as sales professionals to target on that, reverse engineer out into that, how we're going to build the tech, the messaging, and all of that stuff.
Wow. I could have swore I saw like a documentary about that prison thing or some kind of movie.
I think there was. I've probably seen it, but that was probably a few jacks ago. So I mean, invert that memory. So
I think they all, like, all the guards wore like aviator sunglasses or something.
Right.
They all walked around.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Wooden sticks and aviator sunglasses, and it was just like a California University shit show, but an interesting lesson learned for everyone that was a part of it. So we identify with their role. That's interesting distinction, and all the different things that can come from that, and all the different ways you can think about that as a marketer and as a salesperson.
If you start, because you don't know, you haven't earned the right to get overly personal with somebody yet. And that's why it always annoys me when somebody comes at me and says, "Hey, I noticed you went to Regis University for your MBA. I was in that class too." And I'm like, "Well, that's great."
People say that?
1,500 other people. Yeah, they see it on my LinkedIn, or come on, man. I don't know you. I don't know you yet. Let's not talk about that stuff. But come at me as a business owner. Come at me as a sales consultant, come at me as a marketing consultant, then you're probably going to get more of my attention, because it's a safer interaction for an initial salvo, right? I personally identify as a business owner, as a consultant, all of that stuff, but it's safer for me to connect with people that way first, because then I'm not overly exposed as an individual. And so understanding that emotional layer is important in terms of how we structure our content, to go way over the top into somebody's personal life and prove that you've been Facebook stalking them, or you follow them on Insta or whatever. That's a little much, right out of the gate.
That is much.
It's a little creepy.
I had a salesperson at one of those content factories that will just churn out case studies or blog posts, and is super gross. I had her try to add me on Facebook. I remember this was 5 years ago. Add me on Facebook after a spam email or something, after a first phone call. I was like, well, that's kind of weird. What are you doing? Why are you doing that? I'm just going to disappoint you with not proving the friend, and then also not buying your thing. So double whammy here.
Right.
Man. Well, I like this. I like the Vortex. I can tell you've been training this and teaching people this. Man, your definitions are on point. And so we talked about anxiety and the respectfulness, and not playing too much into that. How the influence, is that just, you mentioned case studies, or just saying
it's just if you just created anxiety in somebody, if you've just created an emotional reaction, like a CMO in retail, we'll just keep using that example. You pointed out a trend they hadn't been paying attention to because they were focused on something else over here. You just created a little bit of anxiety. Well, then the next thing you want to do is be like, "Hey, well, it's okay. I got you. I can help you with this. I want to demonstrate influence, that I've solved these problems before." And so while I created the anxiety, I now want to connect that to, "Hey, I can help you. I can help you. And let's have a conversation. Here are the outcomes that the people I've worked with have generated," which is part of the motivation for them to have a conversation with me.
Right.
And so it's all about them, not about me. It's about, "Hey, I know you probably have this problem, whether you're aware of it or not. And if I can hit one that they are focused on, then it allows us to have a different type of conversation. Now I can uncover all of the problems that they're trying to solve, and I can make my deal sizes bigger because I can solve more of those, maybe with the portfolio of products, maybe with different elements of my platform, than just coming in and saying, "Hey, I have this one thing. Do you have this one problem?" No, I don't. And then your rates are your connection rates and conversion rates are through the floor. They're horrible. But if I go in and try to uncover as many problems as possible, and then I have all these elements of a solution I can bring, my deal sizes get bigger because I'm solving more problems
Oh,
and
yeah,
generating more
yeah.
value. Now we're into the value selling side of it, right? That's the value selling framework side of it.
Before we get to that, the motivation, it makes sense. The influence. We've done this before. What's the bet? Any tips? What's the best way to do that? That last part, that motivation, is to get them to take a step, to take an action.
Yeah, ideally, that's what we're after. Motivate them for some kind of action. Either share some thoughts on something we've shared, get on the phone with us, have a conversation. We want to motivate them to act because we want to highlight the outcomes that we have produced or the ways that we have solved that problem, that anxiety point we just created. We
Mhm.
want the outcomes to be the motivator for them having a conversation or a timeline. It could be a timeline too. Like if if you're not in compliance with this, compliance is a big one. So if you're not in compliance
Yeah,
with the data privacy, right, the data privacy acts that are coming out, if I'm a marketer, I'm freaking out about the California Privacy and Protection Act. I think there's 17 different states that have different levels of privacy legislation on them. This is going to change the game for marketers, and it's going to change the game for people that are reaching out, much like GDPR kind of did for EMEA. But when you look at the privacy legislation going on in the US, it's a whole different beast because
mm.
California Privacy and Protection Act, there's no limits, there's no caps on the liability.
Ah,
Whereas
jeez.
GDPR was like a certain percentage of revenue. So you can have somebody, let's just, worst case scenario, let's just say Apple sends out a mass email to somebody and somebody had already opted out, didn't want to be on that list, felt like it was a violation of their privacy in some way. They could sue Apple for an undetermined amount and potentially put them out of business. Now that's a total, big
Hypothetical, sure.
hypothetical over dramatic, but there are smaller organizations that run some serious risks. So as a
Mm.
marketer, there's also those types of things I have to be very careful of. If I am just batch blasting people, I believe you run a bigger risk of falling afoul of the Privacy and Protection Acts than if you say, hey, I think you might have a problem I can help you solve.
Right.
And it's about them. I think people will find that less offensive, less intrusive, less a violation because you're identifying with their role and their industry
Yeah.
rather than as an individual. And so I think there's going to be a lot of changes that have to come out. The motivation is, why should I have a conversation with you?
Right. It kind of reminds me of the Bronx Tale. Like, hey, gave it a shot, right?
Yeah.
I gave it a good shot. Like, I talked to you. I got your role right. Got your industry right. It was helpful. It wasn't helpful, but we gave it a
Right.
shot. As opposed to I'm just going to blanket spam everybody. I mean, that's a
Absolutely.
recipe for punitive action, which from me is hitting the spam report button because I love
Yeah.
doing that because I'm in the industry. I'm like, you know what? This is a terrible email. You're smart. You're like, let me forward it to the CEO. And like, this is
Oh, yeah.
what I do. I just like, oh, I'm gonna spam, hit spam report. I like your method better. You just gave a whole bunch of marketers anxiety talking about privacy. So, what kind of um, what motivation would you say? Like, join this webinar where I'm going to help you out with this, or
That could be motivation for
yeah,
sure, like this motivation, or hey, download this book, this ebook, and if you download it and you click this box, then that gives us permission to reach out to you more for a
right,
conversation. Or if I'm an SDR, it's I have these 3 times available. Would love to find 15 or 13 minutes to talk to you about what's going on, something like that. But you need to be, again, it all comes down to the core. My belief is in respect.
yeah,
If you respect
respect,
yourself as a professional, you will have done your homework. You will have done your prep. You will have accepted that the job you are in has aspects to it that require the grind, that require you to do crap that nobody else wants to do.
yeah,
Right? It's just part of the gig. So respect, understand that that's the deal. That's part of what your company expects from you, and have enough respect for yourself to go into every attempt at outreaching to someone as prepared as possible,
yeah,
but not over prepared so that it keeps your numbers down. You want to do it at a role level instead of like, hey, I'm going after this particular individual and I'm
this
going to focus
person,
on
yeah,
them, right? So it's that balance between scalability and effectiveness.
yeah. I love that. Respect yourself. Come on, man. Like, it, I haven't. If I'd got an email, because like my title now, I used to be Chief Awesome Officer, and that confused everyone. I got no spam from that.
I
I
loved it.
I hit no filters,
Yeah.
but now I changed it to founder and CMO, so I get some of that CMO traffic, and it's been gross. I have yet. Please, someone send me an email like you just described, and 15 minutes. I'm not gonna give you 15 minutes, but like describing that, hell
Yeah.
yeah. Oh hey, CMOs and services businesses or in MarTech fields. Yeah, you got 15 minutes. Let's chat. Like it's what you're talking about is not rocket science, but no one does it. And
Yeah,
so,
no, that's it. It's not rocket
yeah,
science. We say that with every client that we engage with. I tell them, like, if we do an overview presentation with somebody, I say, look, at the end of this presentation, I want you to go, that makes complete and total sense. Because what we do is common sense at the core. But
yeah,
because of the societal norms, because of the digital, because of the customer experience, because of the way we've crafted it around an individual duck lip Instagram kind of world,
yeah,
the fact people get away from those basics, and the basics are so powerful if you have a way to do it consistently.
yeah. Duck lip marketing. That's what all these people are doing. All these LinkedIn, you know what?
Influencers in the wild.
The LinkedIn messages I get are like, "Hey, have you struggled with leads?" And you see their profile, their headline doesn't. It's like all salesy, and you're like, "Oh."
Right,
Like the thing is, if they're saying they can help you get more leads, and they're trying to connect with you, you're the lead. Like
right.
you're not the you're not the customer. You're being lead. You're getting got right now.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I always decline those. I'm like, nope, nope, nope. I know what you're doing. I don't want to be your thing.
Yep.
That's crazy, man. So this is cool. This is really cool. Um, I would love people to do that. I would respond to that. I can't imagine other people not responding to that because I came to this thinking I turn everyone down that sends me their shitty message because
Yeah,
none of them are good. None of
right.
them hit on the roll at all,
Yeah.
or they're just so generic and gross. I would love for this to happen. I would totally take people up on this. Honestly, if people bought my book, I would probably take a meeting too. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, all you salespeople out there. But yeah, that's cool. That's cool. I wish more people. We need to get you training people on New Year's Eve or something. Like, okay, I
Right.
know you're waiting for the ball to drop. Pause for a second. All those in sales, face to the right and
Yep.
watch this quick video over here. It's gonna change
Yep.
your life. But you mentioned respect too. Like, have respect for yourself, and if you're a salesperson or a marketer, to don't just do the standard things because everyone always does that and it doesn't work. And it's like the emperor's new clothes. Stop. Like, have respect
Right.
for yourself and the people you're talking to do just a little bit. Just give it a shot.
Yeah.
Give it to try a little bit and get that
Yeah.
role figured out. In the industry, even more so.
Absolutely. I mean, if you don't take the time, it just shows that it creates the impression, much like the background in a video or the way that you're dressed or the way that
Yeah.
you phrase something in an email, it creates an impression. And we
Yeah.
like to say you're going to be relegated to the level you sound like.
Oh
So if
yeah.
you're trying to get to C-level or owners of small medium businesses or chairman of the board or C-suite, if you aren't able to talk at a level and present yourself at a level where they feel it's a peer-to-peer, at least a peer-to-peer starting point, then there's a much higher percentage chance that they're going to just, flush it. Like, hey, no,
Right.
I don't want to talk to this person. But if you understand, if you can up-level your business acumen, if you can apply the respect, if you can use a framework, rely on the framework and tweak and continually do the evolution and the grind, you're going to get to the 10,000 hour mark, as Malcolm Gladwell pointed out
Yeah.
in Outliers. It takes 10,000 hours to master some of these practices. That's a lot of grind. Don't be afraid of it. Embrace it. Step into it.
Now, if you're a marketing coordinator or a brand new SDR, not too much experience, how do you up your game to be able to speak to a CMO like as a peer or
Yeah.
to a VP of sales? Like, you're like, how do I? You're a room full of CEOs. How do I speak like them? I am not one of them. How do you do that? What do you recommend?
Yeah. So there's a couple of ways. I mean, a lot of people didn't wake up when they were, at 7, 8, 9, 10 and play with GI Joe and put GI Joe in or Barbie in sales uniforms and say, I want to be sales when I grow up, right? Like not a lot of people did
So
that,
good.
right? You just end up there from other ways. And so if you didn't go through a business degree of some description, that's totally fine. There are other
Yeah.
ways to do it. We offer a program called Executive Speak. It's an online program I think of it as a mini MBA. In fact, parts of it that were better than the MBA I did over 2 years. And so that's one
Yeah.
way. The other way is, read some of the books that they're reading, understand some of the business acumen. I believe there's a bunch of free courses out there on, crap, I'm drawing a blank. There's that online university that does a bunch of free stuff.
Oh
Anyway,
yeah.
search for those types of things and just understand how businesses work. How does money flow through a business? What is each role kind of responsible for? We teach a bunch of techniques to do this from a research standpoint to structure your research, but it requires first the awareness that I don't have the business acumen to, I'm like fresh out of school, or I've been doing this 5 years. I don't have the business acumen or the wherewithal to talk to a CMO or a C-level executive who's been doing this for 25 or 30 years.
Right.
Okay. First is admitting we need to get some help. Second is now I'm willing to do the work. And there's a bunch of resources out there. If anybody's interested, shoot me an email and I'll be able to I can provide you a list of places
What's your
you can
email?
check out. chad.sanderson@valueselling.com.
Love it. Love it. So I'll send you an email. You mentioned the research side. What, any quick tips on how do you do that? I mean, is it buyer research? How do you kind of get in their head?
Yeah. It's literally, so I see a lot of people spend way too much time on research. Like I've seen people spend days.
Really?
And really in 15, 30 minutes max, you should be able to collect. Now, this is focused 15 minutes to 30 minutes. Not, I'm doing research. I respond to a Slack message. There's LinkedIn, there's Facebook, Instagram. Here's an email. No, it's
Check
close
my
shit
first
down.
bar. Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
It's close shit down in 15 to 30 minutes. Focused research. Run a search to find out what are the latest industry trends that role is dealing with. You're looking for credible third-party content, Forrester, Gartner, industry analysts, things of that nature. That's number one. Number two, once you've done that and you've started to read and understand what's going on with that role in that industry, or industry trends that industry is experiencing in a more global aspect, you start to have a framework for now how I'm going to do my research. So if I'm going after retail companies, I'm probably going to go to a large retailer, a mid-level retailer, and a small retailer. I'm going to do a little bit of research on each one of those and see where the Neapolitan ice cream matches on each of those three. How are those trends manifesting in what those organizations say their strategic objectives are? And then from there, once you have that, it's just a matter of saying, okay, if a CMO in a mid-level retailer is attempting to deal with digital transformation, and they have all of these platforms, they probably are trying to figure out how to get more leads or more brand awareness or more brand loyalty through these digital channels. What kind of problems are probably keeping them from doing that? Their team may not understand all of the platforms. They may not have a process for capturing the data, doing the analysis, and providing business insights. They may not have the tech stack. They may not have the tech in place. They may not have the digital channels for those loyalty programs or that outreach or that inbound MQL, right? Problems that we're looking at are typically around people, process, and technology. And so once we have that, now that becomes the focal point for my outreach. It's like, hey, I noticed Forrester said this is an industry trend for CMOs in retail. We know that such and such company in your kind of tier has said these are their strategic objectives. We believe those are your same. I'm assuming that you're probably dealing with maybe one of these problems, this problem. We've solved this for other companies. Would love to have a conversation with you. Now it's about them. It's reverse engineering. It took me 30 minutes to do 15 to 30 minutes to do the research, another 10 to 15 minutes to reverse engineer some really pointed questions. We have a tool we call the prospecting prompter that captures all of this so you can target your outreach around these questions. But now at least I've at least done something. I've at least done some homework. I've put some thought into it. And you may not hit it. It's our educated guess. You may not hit it right out of the gate. But at least we're starting to zero in. Hey, this problem didn't resonate with them, so I won't go back to that one. This one did. Or these three didn't. And I finally, on my fourth week of my cadence, I got them to respond with this. And so it's an educated best guess, and doing it consistently is the key.
Consistently. I love that. I can see now you've done just a little bit of 15, 30 minutes, just a little bit of search, a little bit of research. And now when you try the call or you try the email or try those campaigns, now that the A/B testing and all these other things will make much more difference because you're testing out different things that really could hit, not some random stuff. It's like,
Right.
I don't know anything. Let me just A/B test a subject line that makes no sense and it doesn't really matter. But then you feel like you feel good because you did a subject line test, but you didn't really. Neither ones are on the target. But in this case, well, I did some research and it sounds like digital transformation is a real hot button. But budgeting and justification is also really important too. Let's try and see which one of those resonates the most. Oh, they both do. Oh, one does more than the other. Great. Now you've got a real action item you can put into place. That's really cool.
Absolutely.
What's got you excited about the future? Anything coming around the corner that you're like, maybe you want to learn more about, or you're eyeing it, or you're just flat out stoked that it's happening?
Well, I don't know about stoked. I think probably right now the thing, I mean, and this is probably true for a lot of people out there, because of the social distancing and a lot of
Yeah.
our large scale clients are having literally everybody work from home.
Yeah.
I am really intrigued. We've always done virtual training. It's always been a part of what we'd offered.
Yeah.
I'm really interested in up leveling some of that. So some of the tech that I see from an engagement standpoint, some of these engagement platforms, the data that it can give me as a result of who's engaged, who's not, who's taking part in the polls. I really like that from a H to H perspective, like human to human. How do we continue to drive the human to human interaction using the technology in an environment where a vast majority of our of our interactions may be virtual for some time? So I'm very excited about that. I am excited to at some point in the future, because it's not happening today, see some level of artificial intelligence be real.
Okay.
We have a tendency to call AI, a lot of things AI because that's sexier than machine learning. But there's definitely a difference. We haven't quite built in free thinking software.
Right.
So, right, it's not truly artificial intelligence. But some of the data analytics that are being produced by some of the tools that are out there, I think are dangerously insightful. Dangerously meaning people will probably have a tendency to fall back on and rely on the tech.
Yep.
But I think they could be amazingly empowering if I'm taking that data to really understand how am I effectively connecting with or not connecting with
Mm.
the human beings that are my prospects and customers. Those types of advancements are things that I'm definitely keeping an eye on and definitely interested in seeing evolve.
Yeah, like you said, it's not Terminator 2. It's not, you know, HAL,
Yeah.
from 2001. It's augmented.
Yep.
It's helping us spot those patterns. But I think the tendency is, I do this all the time, where you see some bullshit marketing and you're like, okay, it's not AI people. It's not actually AI. Stop calling it that. It's more augmented, which is also an A and confusing.
Right.
I kind of throw the whole thing out. I was like, man, this is New Kids on the Block. I'm not listening to any of this, right? And
Right.
then, but to your point, there are some real things happening with machine learning and with
Yeah.
augmented intelligence that actually could help change the game. So we need to be able to separate out the fluff, but then pay attention to some of the developments that are happening.
Yeah, and if people can continue to do it focused around driving more valuable and productive human to human conversations and interactions, then I'm all for it, and I'm
Yeah,
excited to see where that goes.
you're right. That should be the goal, right? The goal is not what kind of neato thing can you do in tech. It's how can you make these conversations,
Right.
more, less friction, more helpful, more spot on,
Yes.
the right place at the right time, all those kind of things. That makes sense. Well, who are you, man? How did you become the sage? I've been learning from you for like an hour at this point. Like, take us back to like the little days, little
Yeah.
Chads running around, causing trouble, riding his Tyco Harley. Like, did you always know you're going to be teaching people sales and marketing
uh,
and communication and H to
man, it's
H?
funny. Oh man, first time I remember actually saying to myself, "Hey, this is what I want to do when I grow up." I always wanted to be a high school English teacher. That
Okay,
was
really?
that was the goal. That was the first. Well, first and foremost, a writer. I wanted to be a writer. Then I realized they don't make a lot of money. So then I wanted to be a high school English teacher.
Not
Uh,
much improvement there.
I was gonna say, and then I realized they don't make a lot of money. But
How old were you though when you were
I
just
was
like,
in, man, I was probably a freshman in high school. And it was really clear. It was very clear, freshman, sophomore. I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to do something in communication. I wanted to work with and help other people learn. And then,
wow,
fast forward to college. At that point, I think the dream changed too. I really just wanted to um, smoke pot and live on an island, and serve drinks to fat, happy tourists.
well, super quick,
Um,
did you have like a really badass high school English teacher? Is that
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She was awesome, Mrs.
okay?
Michaels, and well, there were two, Mrs. Michaels and Mrs. Newcomb. In fact, Mrs. Newcomb was the one that introduced me to the power of language. As a result of that, I started writing, and actually became, right before I got into college and then throughout college, was actually a published poet. And so I
Wow,
did poetry readings and stuff like that. And that's where the whole smoking pot, living on an island, writing
hell
poetry
yeah.
came in. Then I met a girl, as every story happens. Then I met a girl, and it was more about let's build a life together and let's climb the ladder. So I used my English degree to get into marketing, and so I started my marketing career in analyst and public relations. And so for a software company.
Wow.
And from there, kind of went up, started running marketing organizations, got my MBA in marketing. And then 48 hours after I got my MBA in marketing, I was in a meeting and I looked across the table and there were these two account executives that were talking about some really cool problems that their customers were trying to solve. And it hit me that, you know what, they could just solve cooler problems than me and they're making more money. So
Right.
I gave up my leadership role in sales and became an individual, or excuse me, my leadership position in marketing,
Yeah.
and became an individual contributor in sales. I carried a bag. I gave it,
Wow.
went into that. I was trained in the value selling framework, what I now teach. I was trained in that 18 years ago, changed my life. And so as I went through my career from individual contributor, very successful, to executive, building and running marketing and sales organizations, I continually brought back in the same individual who trained me originally, a gentleman by the name of Rick McInich. And fast forward, I'm an executive at a company, digital agency. We sell that company to KPMG. I was at another digital agency for a while. Worked with some of the biggest companies out there. Worked with the Minnesota Vikings, worked with Verizon, worked with
Nice.
Ingersoll Rand. Sold to eBay, sold to Microsoft, and was very successful at it. But I started to get a little bit bored. And just about that time, Rick McInich, same guy who trained me, calls me out of the blue and he says, "Hey, you need to come do this." I'm like, I don't know about this. But we talked about it a little bit more. And I said, all right, you know what? I'll do it. So I went from, once again, from being an executive with everything that comes, teams and, all that kind of crap, to 100% commission sales rep.
Wow.
I eat what I kill. I run my own business. I work with my clients. I prospect. I sell them. I close them. I implement. I upsell, and I continue on the journey with them. It's one of the things that kind of sets our organization apart. So the gentleman who trained me 18 years ago is now my business partner.
Wow.
And we build we brand under the value selling umbrella. And there's about 4 or 5 of us on our team. There's about 52 of us plus around the globe that do what we do. So we have the ability to scale, which is how we work with companies like NCR, Adobe, ServiceNow, things like that.
Yeah.
We can work with the big global organizations. We can work with the little organizations. If you hit the valueselling.com website and scroll down, there's a video from a company called Bounteous. They're a digital agency. They're one of my customers. They actually won 3 gold Stevie Awards, 4 silver Stevie Awards, and 1 bronze Stevie Award this past February for excellence in sales transformation as a result of us working together. And so very proud of them to see that. And now here I am, fast forward from that kid in high school, I'm working with and teaching communication and alignment and skills, just not where I thought I was going to be doing it, not in a high school setting.
Wow. Wow. What do you think? Like, having been a marketing exec and a sales exec and now, running your own thing and killing what you eat and eating what you kill.
Yeah.
What do you think? Would you, no, not looking back? Like,
it's not for the meek. Let's put it like that. All right. Like, you get it's funny. You take a lot of things for granted as you're working for somebody else. There's a lot of elements of keeping a business afloat that you're aware of, but you're not involved in. So you're not as acutely concerned about. It took about a year,
right? Especially these days.
Took about a year to get the business off the ground, doing well, and then COVID, right? So now it's like we got to pivot, right? So we were always doing some level of virtual, but I've had more clients say, "Hey, I want to up level the amount of virtual we're doing." Well, that's a different beast, right? People learn differently through a virtual environment than they do in class workshops. So we're pivoting all of that, and I have no problem because I love buying the tech. We were talking about this before. I have no problem. This whole room will turn into a virtual studio by the end of the week. Right? I've been planning it out for 3 weeks, and all the shit's coming. In fact, I keep looking for the UPS guy.
I know, right? The gigantic whiteboard that's coming. That'll be so much fun.
Studio lighting, and I've already got the wireless mics in, and the new camera. So it'll be designed to drive as much human-to-human interaction in a virtual environment as possible so that we can still get across the elements of what we know make people successful. And the beauty of the value selling framework and Vortex prospecting is its simplicity, its elegance. It's not high overhead. It's not a lot of extra work. It's really just making people better at what they try to do naturally and giving them a framework so they don't miss some of the steps that we all have a tendency to do because we move too fast.
Man, so true. What a wild ride.
Yeah, it has been interesting for sure.
So how long have you been doing this now?
3.5 years.
Wow.
3.5 years of value selling, yeah.
Wow. Crazy. So crazy.
It's a good time. I enjoy the fact, I've got clients that do, they're high tech SaaS companies to
Yeah.
manufacturing companies to call centers. Like the beauty of it is what we do works regardless. And it's not just about sales. It is about driving internal alignment and alignment in that buying process. And it's just fun. It's fun. I get to work with some really amazing people. Some of my clients have turned into some really great friends.
Yeah.
It gets stressful, and I work harder now than I ever did when I was working for somebody else. But
Sure.
everything's got its pros and cons.
For sure. And man, that's how you kind of know when you've hit that groove, is when it feels like it's playtime. It's like you get to wake up. I don't know if you feel this way, but sometimes it's like I keep waiting for the police to come and take me back to high school. Like I'm skipping school or something, and someone's gonna take me back to an office somewhere to to school and be like, nope, you're having way too much fun. You need to go sit in a classroom somewhere. But yeah, that's really cool. You found that niche.
Yeah, I love it. It's definitely fun. And like I said, the types of customers we get to deal with are extremely diverse. And I continually, even through working with clients, but also through running the podcast that I run, I get to continually feed my head, right? Continually have people challenge me, bring new things to the table, talk about things that are working or talk about challenges. And so I get to stay up on all of that stuff through the guests on the podcast. And then with having conversations with individuals like you, and I'm a guest on other people's, and I read voraciously. So it's just I don't know, just something I turned out to be very passionate about and love it when the light bulb goes on, when somebody goes, oh shit, that is totally going to change the way I interact with my customers. That's the juice.
That is the juice. When you get to see the little light bulbs, especially if you're in a teaching a classroom, you see a bunch of light bulbs going off at once. They're all freaking out. Too much energy. What do I do? This is crazy. Got to change the game here. And I certainly had a bunch of those aha moments today, just going through and writing stuff down, like respect and aim and all these different things. Question for you: if you could go back in a time machine, because I have one, it's up here in Nashville, New Hampshire, and you can borrow it.
Okay.
All it needs is a credit card. You just swipe the credit card. You can buy it. If you could go back, and unfortunately you can only go back to one particular place in time, it's really at the beginning of your career. It could be after that MBA, or it could just be even after that initial English degree. If you could go back in time and advise yourself, tell yourself, recommend some things to yourself, some advice, what would you tell yourself, knowing what you've known, having been in sales, been in marketing, having run your own shop? What would you tell yourself?
I would probably say to myself, don't let the fear dictate your choices. Because for a lot of my career early on, I made choices that were safe, I knew I could go in the organization, I could make a difference, I could work for somebody else. I wanted to start my own business 10 years ago, 12 years ago, but was scared. I was scared of the financial free fall that happens when you start a business, right?
Sure.
No more coming in and shit done going out. And I was scared of it. And I don't know that I had the confidence at the time to know that if you do the right things and you stay focused and you're not afraid to do the hard work and you have some understanding of what it takes to be successful, that you can achieve some level of success. So I would go back and tell myself to just don't be afraid, right? Creativity, curiosity, and grit. I would tell myself, get rid of the fear, amplify the creativity, the curiosity, and the grit, and just go for it.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Just make it happen. Awesome, man. Awesome. So are you going to be hitting the Guinness or the Harley after this? Hopefully not both.
It is a beautiful day outside, although I do have a lot of meetings today. I would love to get the Harley out. I definitely am going to hit the Guinness. That's happening. It's St. Patty's Day. It's got to happen.
You got to, right? Guinness for lunch.
Yeah. Actually, maybe brunch.
Brunch.
Since I'm 2 hours behind you.
Those you're in Denver. That's brunch. Right. Man,
yeah,
you
maybe
woke
brunch.
up. I'm off your beer and you just woke up. It's funny because when I mentioned that, it's like probably 9 for you. You're like, yeah, sure. Why not?
Yeah, hell,
Let's do it.
Not driving anywhere. Social distancing at its best.
That's it. Well, I guess, yeah, you're stuck at home. Might as well have a Guinness. Is that their new ad campaign we've created for them?
It could be. It could be.
Oh, no, I've run out of Guinness. Free delivery. Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. Well, hey, where can people connect with you? You mentioned your email earlier. Throw out your email again, some URLs, LinkedIn, Twitter. Where do you want people to reach out? And obviously, people, don't be strangers and goofy. Don't look like you're lead gen. Just send a random connection, like say, hey, I heard your episode. I want to learn more, that kind of thing. But where can people connect?
LinkedIn's easy. It's just in/Chad Sanderson, ChadSanderson. However, to your point, send a note, because if it's somebody I don't know that just sends me a random request, I have a tendency to ignore it. So it sits in the list and I don't
Me
either
too.
accept it or ignore it. You can shoot me an email at chad.sanderson@valueselling.com. I'll even go one step further. I'll give you my phone number. So it's 303-834-5932. Give me a call. If I don't pick up, leave me a brief voicemail. I will get back to you at some point. And you can always check out my bio page on ValueSelling.com. Just go look under our team, and you'll see my face. And you can see not only my bio and all that stuff, but all the other podcasts that I've been a guest on. And if you're interested in learning more, or check out b2brevexec.com, which is the web address for the podcast. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll put all those in the show notes as well. Chad, this has been fantastic, man. Thanks for joining me and schooling me on some of these things.
It's been a joy. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And those listening, if you've learned something, and I know you have, because I literally have 2 pages of notes over here, then share this with someone else. Be a thought leader to 1 person, 2 people, 1,000 people, but just get this information out there. Help somebody else learn from Chad, and for sure connect with him as well. So thanks again, man. This has been fun. We'll have to check in later.
You got it.
All right, buddy. Take care. And for everyone out there listening, this has been the Hardcore Marketing Show. We will catch you all next time.
All right. A big thank you to today's sponsors. Cheshire Impact, helping marketers and sales win, maximizing the use of Pardot and Salesforce. And a big thank you to Qualified.com, the #1 live chat and chatbot platform for Salesforce and Pardot. Remember the giveaway. If you have Salesforce Pardot and you want a free copy of my book, Marketing Automation Unleashed, then you go over to Qualified.com, engage in a chat, do a demo, and tell them that Casey sent you, and that book will be on its way to your door. All right. We'll see you all in the next one.